talk about the VOD and the silver screen. Kevin and Tom and Joe know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 791, The Challengers. I thought there'd be more shuttle explosions.
There was actually an ad for that Channing Tatum, Scarlett Johansson, like, spaceship movie, NASA movie in front of this, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So before we forget, let's go around the table and everyone can introduce themselves.
This is Joe.
This is Kevin.
This is Paul.
And this is Tom. Yeah, Paul Harris is back.
Thank you.
Apparently you show up for tennis movies.
I do.
Yeah.
By popular demand.
Yeah.
The last tennis movie we had,
Was much better than this one.
We'll see.
I'm trying to remember if it was good or not.
Yeah.
Billie Jean King won.
Emma
but
Stone and Steve
I
Carell.
remember it. I just don't remember if it was
Battle
Wait,
of the
is it?
Sexes.
What was
Yeah,
the one?
it
What was
was
the one
good.
where we had the two gals from the tennis club?
Same
on?
one.
that one.
Oh, okay.
They were both. We had two sets of guests.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was back when we were young.
was
and
unique.
still,
I know, yeah.
still trying. Unlike now.
No, now we're just like,
Whatever.
yeah, man, we'll just show up and talk about it.
So, well, before we dig into the movie, let's get some shameless plugs out of the way. Don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, TuneIn, iHeart. Wherever you find a podcast, you can find us while you're there. Be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. Super helpful. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. It's called the League of Show Sharers because we are hoping you will share an episode. It's just an easy way to get the show in front of people and maybe drum up some new business. People who were kind enough to share the show last week include Travis Tewitt, Tom Dowdy, Julianne Jordan, Chris Valls, Librarian Cynthia, Ralph Tribble, Dustin from Nerds at Night Gaming, Tammy Lynn Powers Betts, Chris Magic Man, Richard Krotzer, Gabriel Lugo, Heather Sachs, Taylor Ward, David Rojas, In Session Film, Geek to Me Radio, Colby Mack, Dissect That Film, Binge Movies, Mike and Oscar, Jarpo, Ronnie Castle, Ryan Terry, Nostalgicast, and Matt Naglia. So thank you very much. We appreciate it ever so much. And also don't forget our Patreon, patreon.com/Real Spoilers, where for $5 a month you get all sorts of bonus content. And you know that we secretly, not so secretly, like you more.
Yes.
And YouTube.
And YouTube.
That's a big one we want to push. So we're up to 445 subscribers.
Nice.
And at 500, we become a partner, and we can get people
We
that
get stock options.
It kind of it's like a Patreon, but you can support the show on YouTube if that's your platform of choice. You can donate to you can throw a few bucks at the show or whatever. So there are just different things, and then at 1,000 we get ads. But at least if we get to that 500, and all you have to do is subscribe. You don't have to even watch the show on there. If you still listen on Spotify or whatever, just go on YouTube and
Smash that like button.
Yeah,
Yes.
well,
Or
subscribe button. Yeah,
Subscribe.
You can
Or
like
you can
it
like it, that's
too,
fine.
but we need the subscriptions.
But
We're
from
50
the way people
away.
talk about it on those other channels, smash that
Well, yeah.
button. It's like, oh, buddy.
Well, and if you've ever
I'm
wondered...
going to lightly click it. You'll get the same effect.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work if you lightly click it. And if you've ever wondered what right-wing nutjobs think of the show,
buddy.
dig into the comments.
Not only right-wing nut jobs, but Elvis Presley lovers.
Yes. I've always wondered what incels have to say about my opinions.
Well, so those aren't.
Guess what? We
Yeah.
found out.
I care even less about you than vagina does.
See, those are not the subscribers. Those are the people that randomly find the show
Hey,
and don't
man.
subscribe.
You know what? If you're commenting on it, go for it.
Well, the engagement's nice.
It's
for
like
sure.
buying a Colin Kaepernick jersey only to burn. It's like,
He's
hey,
still
buddy,
got the money.
Still got the money. I don't know.
It's very true. That
I don't know what you're hoping to accomplish.
Right. So, I mean, it does amplify the show, so we don't mind the engagement. But seriously, if you haven't subscribed yet, just go click that button, and it helps us.
Click that bell.
And if you hate the show, smash that I hate the show button.
Yeah, whatever. Exactly.
I wish that was on there.
Well, there is.
glad
That's what the thumbs down
Oh,
is,
I guess
right?
it's the
Yeah.
dislike button.
Yeah. So,
I couldn't hit that button fast enough.
Oh my gosh.
so anyway, there's all that. Let's dig in, shall we?
Like the trailers for. So I only caught like bits and pieces of this trailer, and then there's obviously all of the I'm not even gonna call it outrage, but like
there's outrage over
no, but it's like there were all these articles about this threesome scene.
Well, that's all I knew about
And
this
it's
movie
like-
was that picture. I knew nothing else about the movie, but the still for this movie is the three of them on the bed.
The synopsis that I felt like I remember hearing was that she was a up and coming tennis star,
Right.
gets injured and ends up coaching both of these guys.
The trailer made it look like she's coaching both of them. That was my interpretation.
And it's like this
Yeah.
I don't it sounds kind of derivative, but it's not, because I think these movies can be really good. It's like those 80s like erotic dramas.
Yeah.
Right, where you've got she's involved with both of these men. Both these men are into her. Like, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
That is not what this movie is at all. It is like this weird dramedy, because there are some that scene where he hits him in the dick. I laughed my ass off.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this a dramedy by any means. I think it's a drama that has some funny things.
That's
but
fair.
A dramedy
Yeah.
would be like the tone throughout it is this comedic,
Like Crazy
but-
Stupid Love. Maybe?
Yeah, well,
I guess that's a
That's a
rom-com.
comedy, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like there are funny moments to lighten it up, but this movie is a serious movie.
It
you know?
is.
There's
And sometimes I feel like it's hard to. I feel like you need someone to root for in a movie like this. And
well, this one keeps you guessing.
I don't
Like a game of tennis, you go back and forth between who are you supposed to
I
actually
think
be.
she's the bad guy.
I agree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think
Like,
you're supposed to think
if
that.
Matt Basler in here, he'd accuse me of, who's the monster, Joe? Like,
Yeah.
that's, but she is.
None
the
of them are
bad-
great, though.
They have moments.
Well, yeah, because they're because
people
have
right. So
moments.
I like that element where
Yeah.
the two main actors, who the one guy was from, what was that? West Side Story.
Yeah, Mike
Yeah, Mike
Faist.
Faist.
Yeah.
He played
Feist.
Riff in West Side
Who I
Story.
thought should have been Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Thought he would make a very good Lex Luthor.
He was in Dear Heaven Hansen on Broadway. He plays Connor Murphy, the friend,
I don't remember that movie
the
at
best
all.
friend. Well, I don't. Was he? Maybe he was in the movie, but he was on.
No, he
Broadway.
wasn't in the movie. But I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, because I
Um,
think that's like the best friend in Evan Hansen.
Oh, is it the best friend? I thought he played the.
No,
friend.
I'm asking. I don't remember
Oh,
names.
the guy that died. That he's the whole thing's
the guy
about.
that died. Then,
Oh.
okay.
Yeah, Connor Murphy. But he's in it, and then Josh O'Connor is in The Crown, which I don't watch. But I thought Josh O'Connor stole the show.
I think
he is
he-
charismatic as all get out. I think he's funny. I think he's the best part of the movie.
I identified with that dude.
Yeah.
Because I would do things like that where it's like that ending scene, I'm sitting there watching it and I was like,
I wish I saw this movie with someone because, when they show the tennis racket thing, and I think this
Yeah.
is very good writing. And then when I saw they were going to play each other, and the more I thought about it, and then when it looks like they're going to hook up, I go, oh, he's going to show him like that was a
Yeah,
good
that
setup. That
is
was a really good setup.
what I liked about that setup. So we'll just get into that. So there's these are two, Art and Patrick are these two doubles stars up and coming in tennis, and they win this cup. And then
They're doubles partners.
yeah. So then, but
Yeah, they
they're-
are.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing,
Well,
right?
I could not figure. This movie took me about 30 minutes to figure out what the relationship was.
Yeah.
I
That-
don't think they ever truly tell you until the split happens.
But I believe them. I don't think they're a couple, but the way they joked around about it and acted, I'm like, what is going on? And she's like, I don't want to be a homewrecker. And they're like, oh, it's an open relationship. Like they joked about it. So I'm like, oh, I get it now. They are a couple, but but that was a joke. They're not a couple. But
Oh, I never took that they were an act. I never.
The way they play that when he says, "Oh, it's an open relationship,"
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, so they're bisexual."
yeah, they say it.
They
And
both like this
I
girl.
don't
al-
think it that way either.
I always read it as him being silly.
Okay,
Oh.
but it's just for me. It took a while to get a read on it, right? Because they throw you right into these relationships,
Yeah.
and you don't know. And the way they act, you're just like, ugh. I mean, the guy he grabs his leg when they're watching
That's
Tashi.
what I
He
thought.
grabs his leg, like I
Yeah.
mean, that's not something. I mean, if I was watching a movie
And
with
you grab
Joe
my
and
thigh, be
something
like, hey,
happened,
hey.
I would never think to grab his leg like that. I'm not
I
saying.
mean, I
that-
do have pretty sweet thighs.
You do,
Yeah.
and not to say there's something wrong, but I just mean that is a visual sign. I think for like
I took it as they're very comfortable with each other. They live together.
That's true.
They play tennis together.
They're together all the time.
They're
They've
together.
known each other for years.
They're, Yeah, and because they are involved in this sport at a very high level, they also like they see each other's bodies. They're familiar with each other in a physical way that normal straight best friends wouldn't be. Now, I don't think that they're both straight but I don't
Okay.
think that that they were together.
And
So here's what I
Okay.
think you've got going on. I think Patrick is straight up bi,
Yes.
which I feel like we confirm when he's going through Tinder because there's boys in the mix.
Yeah, that's
Right?
fair.
Clearly,
and,
yeah.
and he wasn't like,
He
how
didn't
did that
swipe
get
away,
in there?
but he looked
He
at it
swiped
for a
right.
second.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
But he
Didn't he?
waited. He was like swipe. Oh, a guy,
Yeah.
and then he held on it. Like to me, that
I did
was
like that scene though. Where he's just
sign.
like, I don't care. I don't
Yeah.
care.
And not that any of this matters. The point of
It
this
matters
is
to the story.
It matters. It does matter to the
well,
story.
that's true. No,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is that it's not a good, bad, whatever. What I'm saying is it's hard to kind of figure out because you're thrown into it, and just to understand the characters, you're like, what is the relationship?
But I think Art is heteroflexible.
I think that's a great way to put it.
I think he's like in the moment, whatever,
whatever happens,
but
happens.
like he's not looking for it. He's not, like it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
You
But
know.
when he stands up, and this is the scene where I was like, oh, she's the bad guy, where they're doing this 3-way kiss, and she just kind of like, because she asks, that whole scene is very interesting because she goes to this, Zendaya goes to this hotel room. They're having these
Zendaya
Yeah.
Is that right?
and Mike Faist.
Who's Mike Faist?
The
Oh, the guy who plays Art.
Art. Yeah.
Okay. She goes to their hotel room, and it seems as soon as she's there, I was like, well, maybe.
And that's a funny conversation. We're like, what? She's not going to show up, and if she does show up, what are we going to do?
That's a
She
good scene.
chooses one of us, and one goes in the bathroom. And Patrick's like, yeah, if we have to. Like he's into it, and Art's very much like, this is crazy. What are we even doing here?
Right.
But there's another one where when she comes in, and then Patrick is like, well, maybe or whatever, you know what I mean? And then Art's like, no.
Oh, they're talking
no.
about the jerk off story.
But he seems so much more comfortable in
Yes, he
anything
does.
involving the two of
Yeah.
them.
So, but when she gets them to start making out, and then she leans back, and I was like, oh, you're the bad guy. Like you mentioned about them being together, they shot it down, and then you manipulated them to do what you wanted them to do.
Yeah.
And then you kind of kick back, and you're like, all right, gotta go. And then when I swear to God, I've never laughed. I've laughed obviously very hard in theaters, but when
You
Art,
never see this in a movie, and it's hilarious.
never, because that is real.
When
That
a
is
guy, when two people are making out in the movie and one stands up, you never see him with a hard on.
But also just like right, I was a kid of the night. We used to hit each other in the dick all the time. Just walk down the hall and just, dick tap your buddy and
But
make
that
him
was
drop his
hilarious
books.
when he stands. Because I mean, she left him there like that after that whole experience.
And then when he just backhands his boner.
But there's another element about this with her cruelty and her leaving, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much of this movie that is yet another story in which guys will do anything to get this girl. I mean, she disses them. She treats them terribly. She doesn't hang around with them when they want her to. She goes from one guy to the other. They still, to use an old-fashioned word, they're pining for her love or for her sex.
Yeah.
And because she's a beautiful woman.
They're infatuated
and
with her.
Completely understand that. I mean, it's not as bad as After Hours, the Martin Scorsese movie with Griffin Dunn, where he gets caught in
I love that
Lower
movie.
Manhattan. Just, just because he wants to be with this woman, he ends up on a nightmarish ride
That
of
might
his
be
life.
my favorite Scorsese movie.
How
I
did
love that
Griffin
movie.
Dunn not become a bigger actor?
I mean, he was around in the 80s,
he's great in American Werewolf in London. He's great in After Hours.
Yeah.
Like I feel like those are two big movies.
He still plays around in small supporting roles, but he didn't become a
break
star.
out.
Just had a very significant reoccurring role on This Is Us.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
I love me some Griffin Dunn. He's very funny. Yeah. But yeah, so like
To me, this is the best aspect of the movie is the puzzle box of what's going on.
I agree.
and I got really sucked into that aspect. There
Yes.
are things about this movie that I did not like at all.
which were
I thought the score was really
Thought the
weird.
score was
What a-
incredible.
what a wild
Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross score makes this
Complete
movie.
dog.
It took me out of the
This
movie
score
every time it
is
started.
complete dog. And it's this score the whole time is like, look at me over here, I'm playing music.
I thought the
And
same thing.
I think it ramped up the
No.
movie and the intensity.
And the audio
so
mix
much.
on this movie
Yeah.
was complete dog.
You could not hear a lot of the dialogue when that synth pop music was pounding.
Every
I could at the
every
album.
time they had a serious conversation, they would play this music, and it would drown out the dialogue.
You're the only one who will get this reference. I think that they must have recently listened to an old Kraftwerk album and said, let's make that our soundtrack.
Yeah.
But crank it up.
This is the problem with seeing movies in a
No,
I will tell you. I will tell you.
No.
I will
That is
tell
not
you.
true at all, because this is about the mix. This isn't about the volume of the movie.
Yep.
That mix should be the same whether it's on a good speaker system or a bad speaker system.
Do you mean the mix would go with the movie wherever it goes?
When the vocals are at a 4 and the music is at an 8, that is not the movie theater's fault.
I see.
But it is louder, I agree. But what I'm saying is when you have a speaker system that's calibrated differently, you can hear different frequencies. And so even though it was way louder, I heard everything crystal clear.
But I will say, the score took me out of it in the dialogue moments.
Yeah.
I did like it during the tennis match.
Like the tennis matches, it was fine, but when they would have these big dramatic scenes where they're saying very crucial things, and all of a sudden there's this weird up-tempo music that doesn't fit it tonally at all,
right?
And it's drowning out the very dialogue we're supposed to be focused on.
Yeah,
like that was bad.
I didn't have that issue with the drowning out of the dialogue. I
think it was done very purposefully, because in this movie it
was a dumb idea.
Okay. So in this movie, the whole point of it is that these relationships are a tennis match. And so when the score ramps up the tennis match, it's also ramping up the intensity of the back and forth of their arguments. And so they're supposed to be paralleled, and that's why they play them loud and intense in both scenes. And the camera work follows them during arguments a lot of times, like a tennis match.
Did Zendaya direct this?
No, Luca Guadagnino.
Okay.
He did
Call Me by Your Name.
Call Me by Your Name is a big one, but he
Yeah.
did the Suspiria remake.
Which I did like.
He did
that was pretty good.
Bones and All with Timothy Chalamet.
Didn't see it.
And
That was the one with the zombie one, kind of.
No.
But speaking of the tennis matches, the
What do you
cinematography.
think a zombie is?
Oh, he's not a zombie.
Well, it's the same premise.
No.
Zombies eat people.
He's not a zombie.
Well,
but he's a
cannibals eat
human.
people, but cannibals aren't zombies.
The cinematography in this and the director's choices of what to shoot and how to shoot it also drove me crazy. But just one other quick audio thing. My wife watches a lot of televised tennis and has played a lot of live tennis. And she said to me, at no point did ball plus racket equal correct sound. Every time the racket hit the ball, it was more of a clunk sound than the popping sound you would get of real strings on real ball. It was bad Foley work.
That's
it's also
interesting.
it's hard in my opinion. I think when you start using a digital ball and you're expecting all of these people, there's a reaction to your body when you hit a tennis ball.
I was wondering because it looked really real to me.
It did not look real to me at all.
Sometimes it did, but on the really like fancy stuff where the ball is coming straight at the camera, I'm like that's clearly
I wonder
digital.
if
when
the
he
stuff-
hits it like under the leg, I was like that's clearly digital.
I wonder if the stuff they couldn't get, they weren't skilled enough to do. They tried and they had to do digital.
I will say that the Zendaya scenes on the tennis court were much more realistic than the ones with the two guys. But I hated the fact that Luca, whatever his name is, the director, decided to put the camera on the side of the court and swoosh the camera back and forth, which is an annoying way to watch a tennis match, especially from up close. No, but if you're at the tennis match in the stands there, you're 20 feet away, and your field of vision is so wide that you don't have to turn your head all the way to the left and then all the way to the right, because if that was the case, you would go home after 20 minutes and throw up.
I think it...
But he does that in this movie, and he does it all the time. He's swooshing around. You cannot follow the action of what's going on the tennis court.
Oh, interesting.
I could not follow. As someone who knows nothing about tennis, there's a one scene where the ball is either in or out, and Patrick gets really mad about it and is arguing with the ref and gets a technical, and it went by so quickly I had no idea if he was right or not.
Yep.
Well, it was like either right on the line or right over the line. Like when you serve in tennis, you have to go into that opposite square.
I get that, but like I couldn't tell
give you
if
enough
he
information.
was right. I would like to know if he was right to be upset.
Well, I think it's one of those calls where it's like, if it's like right on the line, I don't know that. I think the ref is the only one that can really, they call it is or it isn't.
They show it to you, but it happens so fast that I'm like,
You're
I don't know what
right.
I saw.
I don't think it matters at the end of it. I mean, it's
Well,
just
I
one
think-
more
I
point
think-
out of a whole. It's not like the winning match, you know. It was just like
No, that was the-
but I, from a character
Not that
standpoint, I'd like to know if he's throwing a temper tantrum or if he's right to be upset.
If you're
Yeah.
making a baseball movie and the batter hits the ball and runs to second base, you go, wait a second, this is not the correct thing to do in this game.
It's so funny you bring that up. There have been. I was just watching. Oh, it wasn't. It was maybe it was Major League, where you're watching this. You're watching the game, and this guy pitches the ball, and the batter swings, and he. I played baseball my whole life, so when he swings and the ball goes straight up in the air, and then then the next cut is like the ball going over the stands. It's like, well, no, it didn't. Like
Yeah.
it went straight up. So like I can understand if somebody that played tennis when you're watching it, but that's why when they film tennis, it's filmed from
The end.
the ends,
Yeah.
so you can see everything, right? It's back
Yeah.
and forth, and you don't have to do the whole back and whatnot.
I loved the camera work in this movie. I thought it made it really interesting to watch.
I did not
because
it felt like, what was that Joseph Gordon-Levitt by Messenger movie?
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
Who was the bad guy? Michael Shannon.
30 seconds or less. Or
Yeah.
something.
No, that's the pizza delivery
Is he
bomb Jesse
isn't
Eisenberg
Jess-
one.
Oh, who did
And
you
it-
say? I thought you said Jesse Eisenberg. In my head, I heard Jesse Eisenberg.
No, I know the movie you're
Joseph
talking about. I
Gordon-Levitt.
just can't
Joseph
think of the
Gordon-Levitt.
title.
Gotcha.
Whatever that was.
Yeah.
Like when they do the bike riding scene, that's what this felt like to me. And when they
Interesting.
did the bike riding scenes in that movie,
Yeah.
that's what the tennis
Premium Rush.
Premium Rush.
Rush.
But actually, not a bad movie.
Worked in that movie.
Yes, correct. There were moments where the tennis did work, but overall, I think he didn't know how to film. He had an idea of what he was trying to do.
He's trying to invent a new way to capture tennis on film.
Right.
And
And it's bad.
he
it doesn't
failed.
work.
yeah.
Didn't work for me.
I think at the crux of this whole thing, this is just like when we talk about Moneyball not being a baseball movie. This isn't about tennis.
That's
They are
true.
tennis players. That's the sport.
I agree, but then don't just give me 40 minutes of tennis footage.
but when
I
your
didn't
whole
need the
your
tennis
whole
footage.
ending set piece is two
Yeah.
dudes playing tennis.
Yes, and by the way, that last few set points at the end, taking 15 minutes of screen time. It's not an NBA game. Tennis does not take that long.
well, at least they gave him penalties for it. I mean,
They gave one guy a penalty for it.
Yeah.
Well, when he wasn't moving.
I mean,
yeah.
that whole part of the scene is 15 or more minutes of this movie, and there's not enough action to
It's
make
like
that
it's
worthwhile.
like it's like Wonder Years, where like the kid would stand there and like stare at his mom while
yeah,
there's a
right, right,
narration.
right.
Like in real life, the mom would be like, "Are you gonna talk? Are
what's
you
wrong-
okay?
what is wrong with
What
you?"
Have you ever seen the YouTube footage of
Fred Savage just staring off into
of Wonder Years without
Without
the
the audio.
narration?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like they're just standing there.
I didn't
staring at each
realize
other.
that show was in the Smithsonian. Like they've got pieces of that show because it was so. I was like, was it that? I liked that show a lot. I don't remember it being that influential, but maybe it was. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
who's in charge of picking what goes in the Smithsonian?
I have no idea.
Boomers.
Oh,
And the
That's
show's
fair.
all about like
that's
wasn't
why.
being
That's
a
why.
boom-
That's why Don Draper's suits are in there.
Yeah, and the show's all about like wasn't being a boomer kid just the
best.
See,
The
we're
best.
gonna get the Goldbergs put in the Smithsonian next.
That's-
see?
I don't like
That's
that
like
show.
our version of the
That
Wonder
show's
Years.
like
not the
whatever.
Jeff Garland scenes. You won't.
Yeah.
yeah,
he
I guess
shows
that's
up
true.
in stuff still, though. I feel like he's maybe.
just
So did the
Sure.
guy. So did the
Yeah, that's what
principal
I mean.
from Ferris Bueller.
Wow, he's totally canceled. But
Well, he's
but Jeff
dead
Garland's
now,
still
isn't he?
showing.
Oh, is he dead?
I thought he
Is that
died.
Jeffrey Jones?
Yes.
Yeah, no, he's not dead because he's
His
not in
career is.
Beetlejuice, and it's not because he's
Well,
dead.
Oh, there. You think that funeral scene isn't him?
They all the creators and stuff said he's not in this movie.
Yeah, but you don't think the funeral scene that they're at in that trailer is not Jeffrey Jones?
I've not watched the trailer, but
Oh, they're all standing in front of a grave.
but
I assume
but
that's
they
probably
probably
him.
wrote him out of it because
Sure.
he's a pedophile.
When he was when he shows up in Deadwood, I was like, "What the fuck is
Because
this guy doing
they
here?"
brought him back on the movie, or whatever, right? Isn't that
yeah,
crazy?
yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the time jumps in this movie.
So actually, I liked that a lot.
I thought it was a really interesting way
I
to
did like
unravel the puzzle, like
jumping
Tom was
back.
saying.
I liked that a lot.
You start because the movie starts off and they're at this challenger, which is why the movie's called Challengers. They're at this challenger, and you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on with this relationship. You see Zendaya's in the audience, looking very nervous, very you don't know what the hell is going on with her, and you see these two guys,
Right.
facing off,
And they're both looking at her.
So they jump back 13 years, and we see how you've got, like you said, they're a doubles team. They meet Zendaya. She's an up-and-coming tennis player. She's getting ready to go to college, and they're like, why don't you just go pro? You're good enough. And she's like, I want to learn another
I
skill.
do more than hit a
besides-
ball with a
yeah.
racket. And I was like, I like that line.
I
It's a good
do.
line.
I like the writing in this movie a lot. And so she, then they do the thing at the hotel, which is, the still you've seen everywhere online.
I like that
That was
somebody
a-
took that still and then like photoshopped it to where it's Cyclops, Wolverine, and Jean Grey in the middle.
Oh, did they? That's funny.
I was like, that makes sense.
I saw someone do a video of Tom Holland reacting to the scene.
That's funny.
It's like him reacting to Spider-Man
I
or
gotta
something.
tell
But-
you.
But they put the Challengers video and he's like,
The little Spider-Man joke in this.
I don't
yeah,
like that.
Let's
I was
watch Into
like,
the Spider. But
okay.
she's not in that version, so it
Does,
works.
it's still her boyfriend is still Spider-Man.
You can't look at her and not think about Spider-Man.
Yeah, her
And I
boyfriend is
just- to me,
Spider-Man,
it
and she's
pulled-
in Spider-Man. She's in three. Those movies made billions of
Well,
dollars.
the producer of this movie is Amy Pascal, so what are you going to do? She produces Into the Spider-Verse.
You know for a fact she's like, can you just be Mary Jane? Can you be MJ in these movies? Because I need something.
It pulled me out. Like I
It was a
just
little
like,
meta.
I thought it was okay because she's
I
not
just-
in that version.
I
at
just
least,
don't think
you know?
that like this is the kind of movie that has room for
a meta joke
for a
like
meta
that?
joke. Yeah.
If they talked about the one she was in, I wouldn't have liked it because I don't
She's
like it when they
remember
reference the
remember
real.
that weird thing that happened
But
in
like,
New York?
as soon as they said Spider-Verse, even though I know she's not in
course.
Spider-Verse,
Right.
I instantly went like, "Oh, Spider-Man!" And like
Yeah.
now I'm thinking about her and Spider-Man instead of. paying
I'm gonna
attention
go
to-
watch
Yeah,
Spider-Man. I will say though, throughout those Spider-Man movies, I never once looked at Zendaya and was like, she's a very attractive person. And I did not have that reaction.
You didn't
in
watch
this one.
Malcolm and Marie? See, that's where I think it takes a big turn.
No, I did not.
Joke's great in that movie.
I watched this one. I was like, oh.
because she's supposed to be a high school kid in Spider-Man.
Well, they did a great job.
And in Malcolm and Marie, she's in like beautiful dress
Yeah.
and she's all dolled up and everything. And so I think that
Also, the amount of man dong in this movie compared to, like, you think that she is very sexual when she wants to be, and she gets almost naked. But in this, it's which I liked. It's the exact opposite, where it's just like we're just going to show man dick all the time.
And I think it's interesting because even though there is that sexual tension, it's about these relationships. The whole movie isn't just this erotic story,
which is
right?
how
It's-
I thought this was like the way that trailer makes it look.
I think
that's
it's
how I
cut-
thought it was going to be.
They cut,
And
that's marketing for
Yeah.
you. But the movie is so much deeper in the relationships, but it's not necessarily the sexual relationships.
No.
And so I want to talk about this scene though in the hotel. So the interesting thing that they set up here, you see exactly the character Zendaya is, and it pays off in the end. What she does in this hotel room, remember they're making out, they're having this three-way, they're all making out together, and she leans back, the other still you've seen online, and she's leaning back and she's watching them, and they're continuing with their eyes closed to make out, don't realize she's not there, and then she's just like, all right, I'm out, and she's like, you guys have fun. And they're like, no, we're not, they're not into it or whatever, and she keeps alluding to like, oh yeah, you guys are together, and they ask for her phone number, and she's like, you guys both want it? Yes, carry on. Oh, and she says, whoever wins
gets my
this
number.
next match. And so to step back, they had just said that basically they were going to face off, and that Patrick was going to basically
he was going to throw the
he was
match.
going to let Art win because it didn't really matter, and his grandma was watching, and now they're like, well, I'm really playing because we want her phone number. But she ends up getting them together in the scene, like by leaning back and bringing them together like that. And then what does she do in the last scene of the movie? I mean, it's foreshadowing for what she's going to do.
Yeah,
she
kinda.
orchestrated the whole
Yeah,
thing.
but I don't think that was her. That obviously was her plan in the three-way scene. When Patrick turns the tables on her at that last scene, that was not her plan.
Yeah, but she did it.
That's true.
I mean,
That's true.
this is an artistic movie. Not everything is directly
Right.
In the end, she did it. She brought them together. Her plan worked, and she's pulling the strings behind the scenes the whole time.
I thought that he was gonna smash him in the head with that racket.
Yeah, it
That's
looked like
why
he was going
I
to
was
attack
like,
him.
oh my god, he's gonna beat the bejesus out of him.
But I think that was better the way it ended up, right? Like in the end,
But I don't know who won.
Well, we'll get there, but the foreshadowing is there, and I like that they build it up in this hotel room. That she essentially gets the two together, and she will end up pulling the strings and getting them both together in the end.
Yeah, and it is again. They both have. But I do like that line where he's like, "You said you were going to let me win." He's like, "Yeah, that was a lifetime ago."
Yeah,
As they're
it's
walking, I was
funny.
like, "That's a good line. That's a very good line."
Can I just flash back, ironically,
Yeah.
to the flashbacking of this movie?
Yeah.
Which has more of it than I think I've seen in any other
lot.
movie. I'm used to modern movies not telling a linear story.
Yeah.
They have something that happens, and usually 5 to 6 minutes in, there's some big scene, and then it's like 13 years earlier, 6 weeks ago, earlier that day, whatever it is.
Yeah.
This one goes back and forth and back and forth, and like the camera from the side of the tennis court. You're going back and forth and trying to figure out where are we, what's going on.
Oh, that's interesting.
They look essentially the same.
I think they did a great job telling them apart. I thought it was very easy with the hair and the facial hair, because you knew when it flashed back, you have blonde, long hair, and then Patrick has no facial hair. And then in the present, got short. Art has short hair and Patrick has a beard. So it's like very clear.
They're alluding that he's a heroin addict, right?
Well, he was scratching at his arm.
And he had,
I was wondering
he had
that,
bruising on
but-
his arms.
They never revisit it, but in the moment, that's what I thought they were alluding to.
I thought that was that was an interesting little.
If only we could have had one more flashback scene 6 years ago, and there's a needle in his arm. And then 9 years later, there's a needle in the room. Come on.
So
Every single thing in this movie was jumping back and forth.
I did like that, because it while we're getting present day stuff, right? They're not. It's not jumping. It jumps back 13 years later, and then they tell that little part of the story there. Then we go back to present day.
it's a puzzle. I
Although
liked it.
sometimes the descriptions, I was just like, but what does that mean? When they'd be like 13 years ago, and then they'd be like 5 days ago.
Yeah, like, wait a minute.
Five days ago from when?
Well, it's always
when is my
it's
anchor?
always 5 days from the present. It's
Yeah.
everything's the anchor is the present, and so it does 13 years ago, 12 years ago, 1 week ago, 5 days ago, midnight the night before the match. Everything is the movie starts with the tennis match in present where they're facing off, and everything's relative.
Marty McFly didn't move around in time as much as
Well,
this
he
movie
couldn't
does.
because he didn't have the capacity to do so, because he didn't have
1.21 gigawatts.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
he didn't
I
have
think- I think telling it linear would have been boring. I just think that it was edited. I mean, they may have
agree.
had a
Like,
plan.
The
but
fun is trying to figure out
Yeah.
like what's going on here.
I like that a lot.
And I think if this was told sequentially, it would
just be a
been
snooze.
very boring.
It'd be a snooze.
And I think it was exciting. It kept you engaged, and I really liked the idea of this. I liked the idea of these three friends and who would all become more, this love triangle, and how the relationships evolved and shifted over time, and they kept coming back into each other's lives in these different ways. And then the idea that 13 years later you would have to face off, and your career and relationship kind of depends on it, challenging your friend, your best friend, and
Right.
and I don't know. I thought it was a very exciting and interesting concept, and it kept me engaged.
Well, I
for
also,
sure.
again, going back to the who do you root for?
Yeah.
I do think that Patrick is the guy you're kind of rooting for
Well, he's the underdog.
for
so
the
it's,
most until the day before the match. I do think he's kind of the good guy, because he doesn't So Art and Tashi go to Stanford. That's where they're going to school. Patrick is trying
Pro.
to. What?
He's on tour. He's a pro.
Yeah. He's trying to break into the top 100, because I don't know. Is this true? If you're in the top 100, you're automatically in the Open. Is that fair?
There's rankings.
Yeah,
Anybody
right.
can try to get into the Open. There are qualifying slots. But the character, what's his name, Jonathan?
There's
Patrick.
Art and Patrick.
Patrick. Excuse me. Patrick, in this movie, his character is a very realistic depiction of what it's like to not be a named tennis star.
to be almost good enough.
If you're ranked 363rd in the world, you're playing in stupid little tournaments like the one in this movie in New Rochelle.
Yeah.
You're not making any money. You can't afford to have an entourage. You can't afford to pay a trainer. Nobody travels with you. You don't have money to pay for the places you travel unless you win. A lot of these guys who go out in the first or second round of those kind of tournaments, they've just wasted time and money, and they can't afford it because they have virtually no income.
Yeah.
That's the truth of the tennis circuit now. And it's worse for women.
And I think there's something also talking about these characters. I think we should establish where they are and, just the economic hierarchy here.
In the current day?
No, even from the beginning. So Zendaya comes from a rich family, and she's got all these sponsorship deals and everything, and she hasn't even gone pro yet, but her family has a foundation, and they're very wealthy, so she's already got Adidas.
She's going to be fine no matter
Either
what
way,
happens.
yes. But she is a very talented tennis player, but she wants to go to college, so she's on that path. Art is a really good tennis player, but he doesn't necessarily have passion, but he's technically a very good player.
Right.
He
Good
doesn't.
enough to get into the majors.
Yeah, he's a very good player, but it just doesn't seem like he has the drive. Also,
He's Yngwie Malmsteen, technically proficient, but he doesn't know how to write a good hook.
there
Well
you go.
done.
And he doesn't come from money, but he's talented enough where he can make a living because he's so good. And then you have Patrick, who wants to be self-made. His family's very rich. We go to Zendaya's house.
We get that
for a party.
we get that line from Zendaya where she says, "You can go home, go live off your trust fund, get a seat on the board, go live in mom and dad's
But
house."
even before that, I like it to where where they're talking about Patrick's house, and Art says, your parents' house is bigger than this, and she's like, is it? And he's like, no. Well, yeah, technically it is. So you can tell he comes from money, but he doesn't want a free ride, and so he's trying to make it on his own. And we see 13 years later, he's not cashing in a trust fund. He's not just taking this job. He has been struggling ever since their doubles partnership dissolved and whatever happened in their relationship. He's never made it to the pros, but Art has. He's good enough, and especially with Zendaya's coaching. And now we should also say, throughout these flashbacks, we find out that during one of her early matches, Zendaya, she tears
it looks
her
like she
knee
blows
or-
her knee. It blows her kneecap off.
Yeah, really painful. It looked painful.
It's your patella tendon.
Oh, okay. so her shots.
I have a podcast about patella.
You do, yeah, I know. Yeah, it's very successful from what I hear.
So anyway, she's an extremely talented player. She decides to go to college, and she's hopefully going to go to pros after that.
Which is why so many NBA people skip college, right? Like, it's like,
or they do a year to
Yeah.
get eligibility, and then you're
because it's like, if you go there and injure yourself, now what?
Well, it's crazy people, the major league sports, with the exception of like football, I don't think football's signing kids that are 14, but like Major League Baseball, like there's a 16-year-old prospect here, sign him to a deal, and then when he can do whatever he wants until they want. I should say they want. And then when they're ready to get in the draft, they don't even go to the draft. They come straight to us.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, that happens all the time with hockey players and baseball players. I assume tennis players, if they see something. But then you're gambling on a 14-year-old kid that's going to be in 6 years. You'd be like, yeah, I'm done.
Well, the difference is tennis not being a team sport.
That's true.
You're really in it for yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to get to a point in tennis where you have those other people in your posse who help you. You got to have the manager who lines up your hotel and your transportation so that you can get out on the court and just practice for hours
That's kind
a day.
of, I mean, MMA, I think, is one of the...
I was going to say, it's like boxing.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah, you've got to have somebody who gets your endorsement deals, and then they pay for your rackets and your clothing and all that sort of stuff. And if you're at the level that Patrick is in this movie, I'm not sure that you last 13 years without that stuff.
Yeah, it's
in the world of
Maybe.
tennis.
That's true.
I think he's
He's cashing some trust fund checks, I think.
Possibly. I think he's very good, and he's just on that. He's just walking the edge there, where he is really, really good, but he hasn't broken in. But he's probably winning enough small tournaments to keep himself afloat. I think he's paycheck to paycheck. That's why his bank has $10, and he can't check in the
He's
hotel.
probably teaching classes and
Yeah.
But it's like between tournaments, it's like his money is all the way to zero. Then he gets a little bit more. He's surviving.
Well, then, I mean, you can
barely.
see in the way they're dressed, right? Like Art has like the designer polo
He's
and
sponsored.
the,
So he's wearing, they're all
where
sponsored.
Patrick's wearing like a shirt he bought at Target and shorts he bought at Target,
Sleeping in the backseat of his car.
Yeah.
So they 13 years back, they play this match and for her phone number, and so it kind of flashes forward, and we find out that Patrick won, and then they're going to practice the next day, and Art's like, "Come on, did you guys hook up?"
He's like, "I'm not telling. He's like, "Okay, look, you're not gonna like. This is what I want you to do. You still got that dumbass serve. Serve the way I serve, and that will let me know if you did it or not." He's like, "I'm not telling." He's like, "You're not telling me." He's like, "You're not telling me anything." And of course he does.
Goes to do his serve, and then he's like puts the racket down and puts the ball there, and then he's given his grin that he gives again.
It's not even a grin. It is this like off to the side little smile,
it's a smirk. Yeah.
I used to do when I wanted to pick a fight at a bar. That's what I would do. I would say the right thing to the right person, and I would give that little smirk, and I was like, thank God, like, let's go. Can we go outside, please? Like, But
then you see on Art's face, though, because, normally, I mean, he kind of starts off being, like, happy for his buddy, it seems like, and instantly he drops because he really likes her, too. Tashi is the character's name that Zendaya plays.
Yeah.
And so you can tell that he just dies a little bit inside when he sees that. So Tashi and Patrick end up being in this relationship as they go to college, and then we find out, fast forward to the next year, we meet Tashi at school. Tashi and Art are having lunch, and this is the part where we talk about all the characters kind of do things that are crappy, and so this one, Art I believe selfishly, because he likes her, is trying to start stuff like
he's absolutely trying to drive a wedge between them.
As a really crappy move, because he never said, and I don't think that Patrick was cheating on her, because he asked, like, does he have a girlfriend on the tour or whatever? I don't believe that he did, but he then is like, he doesn't love you. Like, to drop that.
Yeah. It's definitely a line that will plant the seeds of doubt into, and I do initially like her reaction where she was like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for lunch, but what? And
Or her
she gets-
defense mechanism. Did I ask anyone to love me? What
Right.
does that have to do with anything? 'Cause she's hurt clearly, but she's also a very strong, capable person. So she's like,
Correct.
Yeah.
And then so Patrick shows up at Stanford, and he and Arthur have this interaction, and I thought that he already knew what Patrick had, or what Art had said. Like, Pat already knew what Art had said because Tashi told him so, but he doesn't. And the way he plays this, it's like, it's very slick because he's like, hey, you know, I'm proud of you. Like, I've never seen this side of you. Like, you're doing some underhanded.
but he's also very confident. Like, Patrick is not the type
yes.
of character that like feels intimidated, or he's not the jealous type. Where Art is very much like, I like her and I'm
He's very
jealous
insecure.
and everything. But Patrick is like, yeah, way to go, man. I mean, he's just joking around because he knows they're good friends and he didn't take it that seriously. He doesn't know what he said. I don't think he would have liked that part of it. But yeah, I think that Josh O'Connor, the actor, is really good in this role.
He is very
He's-
good.
yeah.
I think he is very good.
Patrick comes to see Tashi.
Okay,
in her dorm
so this
room.
was the scene where I was like, he didn't do anything wrong. Like, he is basically like, she's going on about his serves or something,
Right.
and he was like,
Yeah.
can we not talk about tennis? Like, I'm like, I'm here with you. Like, I want to talk to you. And she loses her, like, not loses her mind, but she snaps into like, I got to get ready.
So he didn't do anything wrong, but she's still mad at him. So have you ever dated a woman or?
Yeah, sure have.
I mean, clearly,
I mean, like when we're saying like she's kind of the villain of this movie.
Yeah.
It's this other scene where like he's trying to engage.
I don't think there's a villain in this movie.
I don't mean
if there was
villain.
one
Maybe like the
person that's maybe a
antagonist.
little bit,
Manipulator.
yeah.
She's the closest, but I do
She's not
hesitate
a
to
villain.
actually.
You're right. Villain is
flat
not.
out
She's not the villain.
I just
brand
wanna-
her a villain,
but
yeah.
she is the
Yeah.
catalyst for all of this.
she's not the best person, but they all are human. They all have
But she
flaws.
doesn't. You're right. I don't think she does anything good for anyone besides herself in this movie.
Okay, that's very fair. So here's the thing with these characters. We talked about their drive. Art, present day Art is done. He doesn't care.
Oh, he's checked
done
out.
with tennis. The
Yeah.
only reason he's continuing is because he basically knows that Tashi and his relationship depends on
Well,
it.
I think they say that he's won. He needs to win the U.S. Open, and then he's won everything,
Yep.
and that's it. And that I think that's
Which
the goal.
he doesn't
right?
care.
I get the motivation, but like, if the worst thing that ever happens to you is you only win 3 of the majors, in
Right,
tennis,
right.
like you're gonna be okay.
But here's the thing. He knows that, and he could not give two shits whether or not
Yeah.
he wins it.
No.
But Tashi got injured and wasn't able to go to the
she
big
has
show.
become his stage mother.
And
Yes.
so if he
Yes.
doesn't win it, she as his coach does not win it.
Yeah.
So he is playing, as he states in the film, he's playing for the two of them.
Right.
And so that is what is driving, it's really hurting their relationship because all she cares about is tennis. And with her not being able to play, she hitched her wagon to someone who is technically very good, but at this point has given up. And so
Well, I mean, he's saying that he's old, and I don't know how. They don't say how old he is, but I mean,
he's like 31.
yeah, but that tennis has a shelf life. Tennis players have,
Unless
like
your last name is Williams or
That's
Federer
true.
or Nadal
yeah,
or Djokovic.
and they.
But he's not old. I get that he's getting up there. He says, I don't want to play
I cannot
tennis.
believe those people play at the level that they play at. By the way,
I
like
know.
still,
I know.
it's crazy.
It's
But he-
amazing.
yeah,
He says he doesn't want to be playing in his 40s, but he is early 30s at this point. So just to be clear, like he does have some more time, but the fact of the matter is he says, I'm tired. He's done. It doesn't matter if he's 30 or 35.
He's
or
burnt out.
He's been
maybe
playing
he
for 20 years.
Yeah, he's been playing. I mean, he was at like, I felt like when they were doing doubles, it said U.S. Open on the sponsorship. I don't know.
They might have made it into the Open.
You know,
but they're playing as doubles. They
right.
weren't playing as
but I
singles,
mean,
yeah.
he was not in college yet, and he was at the U.S. Open.
Right,
so
right.
to your point,
Junior Open.
Okay, okay, there you go.
Oh, okay.
So,
Because they even say that there's a line where Patrick said, I think it was Patrick who says something to the effect of like, winning this would be bad because people who win, it's almost like getting Best New Artist Grammy.
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
you never go on to be anything. Like,
Right,
you
right.
know, Alice in Chains loses to Firehouse, right? And
Win.
yeah, and so like he's just like, you don't really want it. That's not where.
That's a good call.
That's not where the stars are coming
It's
from.
it's the old American Idol thing, right?
Yeah.
Like after Kelly Clarkson, it was always the person that came in second
Right.
that became the bigger star for
Jennifer
a while.
Hudson would be the classic example.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Carrie Underwood.
Carrie
Sure.
Underwood
Carrie
is the
Underwood.
big
Right.
one. Yeah.
Did she win?
Yeah.
No? Oh, Carrie Underwood
Yeah, I
did
think she
win?
won.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But,
So
but
two.
here, again, in tennis, watching
Daughtry.
problem I have with
We
this.
lost.
Yeah.
The match that he's playing in New Rochelle, New York,
Yeah.
is about 3 or 4 levels below where a guy who's been in 3 and won 3 Grand Slams. They don't do that. There are tennis tournaments that are just below the Opens and the other slams. You know, Indian Wells, California, Cincinnati, Miami, Indianapolis. They have ones that are kind of in the lead up to the U.S. Open. And those are the kind of things the big name pros still come and play those because they have some prestige. My wife and I in Florida on vacation last year, we went to a tournament in Delray Beach, Florida.
Okay.
The Delray Beach Open. And we had a good time, and she loved it because she's so into tennis. It was tough for me because the seats are not made for people 6'4". But anyway, it was fun, and there were a couple of guys there who she knew. But if you looked at the rest of the roster, who are these people?
Sure.
They're either people on the trying to move up, or the people who can't even get to Indian Wells, who are trying to carve out some kind of a career, and they're in these minors. This guy, Art, would never be in that New Rochelle tournament. Yeah. Never.
Well, that's why they say it's a wild card. I mean, he shows up to get his confidence.
I took it as, I don't think that you're wrong, but I took it as like that's how little faith she had in him at this point. That she's
That's
like,
the way I took it as well.
Like all I could think of was the line from Rocky 3. Was like, they was hand-picked, Rock. Like, it's like she's hand-picking losers. So
Is
This was to get his confidence back,
to boost his confidence. And
he didn't want to be there.
She wanted to see the birthplace of Robin Laura Petrie.
Right.
Yeah, that's why.
So, yeah, I totally get that, but I think the movie presents it as so. I mean, there's no reason he should be there, and it is beneath him, and I think they make that clear. But this guy is so done, and she knows he's
It'd
not.
be like Albert Pujols deciding, you know what, just to get my swing back, I'm going to go play for the Memphis Redbirds.
Yeah.
Well, that would happen.
Not double A.
I guess that's
He
true.
would go down to
He would get
triple A, maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
For sure.
That's a great. That's well done. That's good
Thank
too.
you.
Yeah.
And I know nothing about the Cardinals except Albert Pujols.
Same.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
The fact that you got Memphis as like the double A team, though, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's cutting back and forth between what happened 13 years ago, what's happening now at the New Rochelle
Yeah. So
tournament.
after that fight, Art texts.
Oh, but here, real quick though, but to Zendaya, to Tashi, so she says sex and tennis is no different for her. And there's a parallel that runs throughout the whole thing. When they first see her and she lets out that scream when she wins, that's her orgasm.
Right.
I mean, she the two things are inseparable for her. So when they're having sex and she's coaching him on tennis, and yes, she's mad at him, so she's pushing it more than she normally would, I believe. But and he says, hey, I don't want to talk about this right now. And she's like, okay, well, I'm done here.
Yeah,
then.
see ya.
And then it's really interesting because they have this conversation that kind of parallels another conversation later where and I like this. Patrick stands up to her, and I think rightfully so. He's like,
I think that's
I'm
why
your
I think
peer.
that's why he always has an in with her.
Yeah.
Whether it's in present day or whatever, like there's always that attraction from her to him, vice versa. But because he just didn't put up with her, you know, the way Art does.
He stands up to her. She
Right.
likes that. She can't push him around. Art folds. He claps. He's weak. He's just he doesn't have that swagger. Doesn't have that confidence. But anyway, but he's
the one you have sex with and the one you marry, right?
There it is. That's it.
So he says, he's like, I'm not your student. You're not my coach. I'm your peer. And he says it to her. And so that basically ends, at least for now, her choice.
It ends it for the entire time.
Her choice is kind of made at this point where she's
she said, but this is when she gets hurt, and Art is there and by her side, and Patrick comes running in, and she's, Art turns on Patrick pretty quick when he sees when that door is open, where Art can kind of take that protective role for Tashi. He yells at Patrick to get out, and that's where the split happens. Art and Tashi kind of go on their way. She becomes his coach.
Let's be clear, and I agree with you. Patrick did nothing wrong.
Nope.
He was
just
right to be mad.
He was
in
like,
this
"Hey, I just kind of
situation.
can we just hang out, and not talk about tennis?" And she was like, well, "No."
Yeah, I mean, he did nothing wrong.
Now, should he have been at the match, even if they had a fight? Probably.
But would you? Anyone in a relationship that is that bad of a fight?
I gotta tell you though, it's yes, but only because I think in that world,
if you want to stay with that person,
that's it.
You suck it up and you go to that match.
Especially
because
if it's
not going to that match says I don't want to be with
And
you.
because guys will do anything to be with a beautiful woman.
Yeah, but he's
anything.
He's already been with her.
No, but he's not going to leave her at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'd like to be with her again.
I think the level, there are certain things where you could probably get away with not showing up, right? But the level of that match that seemed like it was pretty important. Like the stands were packed, and it seemed like a pretty important tournament. And when he no-shows it because they had a fight, I mean, that's kind of
what was the level of the match? It was a tennis match. She wasn't at the U.S. Open.
Yeah, but
they had a bad fight, and he didn't show up to a tennis match. I don't think it's that.
But he drove to Stanford to see her.
Yeah,
and then they have this fight, and by not showing up, that shows he's like, I'm out.
But they were that argument was I'm done. They were done. They were as good as done.
I disagree. I think you're allowed to have fights. You're allowed to have big bad fights.
Yeah.
And if you're still into that person,
I've never had a fight where I'm done where it didn't end with me saying one of us saying we're done.
Yeah.
Like I've had bad fights, but
like everybody, bad fights happen. That's just part. You know? And I think it's a level of
the last bad fight I had ended with me going like, I'm in the parking lot of the bank and I'm closing out a checking account. That's where we're at.
I guess that's equivalent of I'm done.
Yeah.
You know?
I didn't tell you the really thing I said. she was like,
this is my favorite part.
This is just to be clear, this is at the end of my first marriage.
Yes, correct.
My then wife was like, you don't have the nerve to leave me. And I was like, bitch, I masturbate to the thought of leaving you. And I hung up the phone and I walked in and I closed out our checking account.
Oh, that's so good.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to write that
Because
down.
guys will do anything to not be with a crazy woman.
Yes. And vice versa.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think we're all on the same page. It's not what you should do, what you shouldn't do. I'm just saying it's not beyond the realm of possibility. They had a really bad fight.
I don't disagree.
He didn't show
I
up
also
to
think he's very immature.
If she didn't get hurt, it probably would have been fine. It's just
Probably.
the circumstances all lined up to where it made him look like the worst person. He wasn't there, and then she got hurt.
If she doesn't get hurt, it's not an insurmountable.
Yes,
Right.
And he's not a fortune teller. So I'm just saying, like, horrible fight, didn't go to a tennis game. Big whoop.
Right.
She got hurt. Art was there, and he swooped in. Like, let's not mistake. I mean,
He's a swooper.
He was
swooped.
He was waiting in the wings.
Absolutely.
He planted this little
That
story.
sounds like you're trying to come up with a Larry David thing.
He was John.
Swooper
Thank
thing.
you. Thank
He
you.
was John Lovitz in The Wedding Singer.
But like, and Art had no reason to be mad at him. I mean, again, Patrick didn't do anything other than didn't go to her tennis game, but he was sure there to defend her honor, right? So anyway, that was the end of that for both their relationships.
And then both of their careers went on different paths, right? So Art takes
Yeah,
Tashi.
two of them had one.
That's true. Yeah, exactly right.
But here's
Art
the
and
thing.
Tashi go on to become this power couple in tennis. Like they,
But
so
Tashi's
much so
done.
that she
she never
done. Her
comes back
careers,
from the
she
injury.
Can't. Yeah.
And it's never the same. You see them trying to practice, and she gets hurt just trying to move one way. You know,
Well,
and-
he's again. This is another scene where it's like, I've been injured. I know the process of trying to get and not having the same mobility you had prior to the injury. So
and imagine when you're like one of the best at what
and when
you
you're
do,
when you're playing
and
at that level,
and you can't do it. It's got to be just.
it's here's what this is ding ding. If you watch Stone Cold Steve Austin before the neck injury, he's a different wrestler. He moves differently. There's a whole his whole repertoire in the ring is completely different. His whole in-ring style completely
how long
changes.
was he back after his injury? He wasn't there for that long, was he?
So
after that?
Owen dropped him on his head in SummerSlam of '97.
Hmm.
He was actually back. He wasn't wrestling, but he was on the show like the next night.
But how long did he last? Through 2000?
So they did the angle in where he gets hit by the car, Survivor Series 1999, where he gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
And that was 99. So he gets dropped on his head in 97. He's out in 99.
Yeah.
So he wrestled for 2 years with a messed up neck.
Yeah.
And then he came back, and that doesn't matter. But so yes, he wrestled for 2 years.
I agree. It does not matter.
Thanks, Tom.
So at that point,
But what I'm saying is, like, when you have that, and now initially her injury doesn't look that bad. It looks bad, but
I don't know. Did you see the bones?
well, that was her patella that like
and
turned
the sound mixing there.
It was good. It was
That
well
was-
done.
I have a rule. I like the bones on the inside.
yeah,
That's fair.
it was gnarly. Sounded real bad.
There's
Apparently
another joke
so does
there.
she.
Yeah, I was going to say there's another joke there too. But so yeah, she gets injured and she can't play. Like he's. This is what I liked about this is he's not being an asshole to her. He is definitely not giving her his 100% because he doesn't want. He's like, we'll just take it slow, and she's like, stop. Play like you're going to win. And as soon as he starts to play like he's going to win, she gets hurt. And that's,
I mean, everyone knows that when you have an injury, it's best not to go back 100%. I mean,
right.
you can't rush it. I mean, when you're lifting weights, you tear something, you don't go back in and lift heavy. You got to ease into it. But her personality does not allow her to do anything less than 100%. So it doesn't work out, and they don't have to show it. We don't see her failing. It's interpreted.
you get one instance of her
it didn't
failing.
work out, clearly. She becomes his manager and now is living vicariously through his career.
Right, and they've got this daughter. And I do think I like the scene with no words. I liked a lot, where we'll just speed up to the end of this thing. It basically comes down to Art and Patrick. Nobody anticipated this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Patrick is kind of worming his way back into Tashi's life. He's doing exactly what Patrick does. And he's just and now he's kind of doing things where he basically says, look, we know Art is done. And Patrick knows that if Art catches them together, they're both screwed. He says, look, you know he's done. I know he's done. I've probably got one good year left. You coach me, we'll win every damn thing we've got. And she was like, you're out of your mind. And like, I do like, she has the amount of disdain that she has for him is kind of a lot.
Well, it's also guilt too, because before this,
I guess that's
it's
true.
Guilt. She doesn't want to be associated with him. She blames him for, I mean, it takes two to tango, but so we find out that they said something about Atlanta. I don't know if we're supposed to know.
No, they tell us about Atlanta. So
what conference this was, or what
it was at something where they were both there at the same time. Patrick.
Well, I know that, but time period, like I couldn't quite place what Atlanta was. They just say Atlanta.
Art still has his longer hair, and he makes this comment
when he's wearing the shirt from the dorm room.
But he wears that more than once,
right? But
it's like years later.
Yes,
and he's wearing that shirt.
But I think so. This is that scene in the sauna where Patrick apparently has a giant wiener and like comes in and just like flinging it in Art's face, which I think is very funny.
It's Ryan Gosling and Crazy Stupid Love that you just mentioned.
Yeah, and he's just like, "Can you put your dick away?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry." I mean, he's like, He says that she was into you when we were teenagers, and then the line
like,
he goes, "Teenagers,
teenagers,"
and so like I assume that means that they were in their 20s at that point. So we're what 10 years after college. And then they see each other, and
I don't know.
I'm taking that as like
10 years.
I'm taking that as like we're in our 20s.
Yeah.
So, that's
they were
fair.
18 when they met.
That's
so
true.
I'm just
That's
saying
true. We're post college. That Atlanta scene is post college.
Yeah.
They have Patrick shows up at this tournament they're at. They have this interaction, and then they hook up.
Yeah. Well, he meets her at a bar. She's in a lobby, right?
Yeah, he walks past the window.
Yeah.
And
he's
sees
in
her.
that shirt, and they hook up. So, but it's interesting. I want to talk about the sauna scene.
But I do like that Art sees them together.
Yeah.
And then somebody like asks him for an autograph, and he of course signs it. And I do what I think is interesting is Art knows what happened, and he doesn't say a word about it.
Well, so
he absolutely knows.
Yeah, Art has a feeling, and I think that's why they show you that scene where he's picturing them there, because he knows.
Right.
But in the sauna scene, what I like is Art has some very strong words for Patrick. Art has been so nonchalant. He's dead inside. He's sick of tennis. It goes on and on and on. Patrick is just badgering him and this, that, and the other. Come on, man. We haven't talked the whole time. This is not that big of a deal. And Art is pretty much just silent. But then at the end, he's done with it.
He hits him.
And
not hits him physically.
And what and he talks about, we're both here or whatever, and then he says something to the effect of like, the difference between us is that you live here, I'm just visiting.
Yeah,
and
that's a good line.
That writing and that delivery, it's like, he doesn't say anything. It's like Silent Bob hitting you with some dialogue at the end. He says nothing, and then that is such a cutting line.
It is a very good line.
You live here, I'm just visiting.
I'm just visiting.
Man.
It is funny to see posters of Andy Roddick all over the place, and I was like, man, they definitely wanted that guy to be a thing. And then he played Nadal, I think, and that was it. Like, they're like, oh no, we hitched our wagon to the wrong guy. Like, we're gonna go with this guy.
Yeah.
No offense, Andy, if you're listening. Like, you could beat me in tennis very easily. That's not a big deal.
I think we're safe.
I think you're right too. So now Tashi has his number, but she realized they have this scene in their bedroom in present day where basically Art says, I'm done. Like, I'm going to play this. I'm going to finish this tournament. We're going to the Open. I'm going to play my hardest there. But whether I win or whether I lose, I'm out. I'm retiring. And he's like, I just need you to tell me that we're going to be okay. And she can't. And it's like, God, you're awful. Like, just tell him that
he
he's
just
gonna,
wants to hear that
you love him.
You love me even when we're not tennising.
When he says, I love you, and she goes, I know. And I was like, easy, Han Solo.
Yeah.
Like, you're not on that level yet, but like, good Lord.
She doesn't. I think she's so out of love with him at this point in the beginning.
Absolutely.
Because she cannot separate tennis from love. And so what happens, she breaks up with Patrick because Patrick says, I'm not going to play this game. You know, this relationship is not a game to me. And she says, tennis, sex, there is no difference, right? So she found someone, Art, who would play the game, and he's very good at the game.
Yeah.
When Art gives up on tennis, he gives up on their relationship. It's all intertwined.
Well, she sees it that way.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
but-
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he doesn't think that way. It's her. But so she's done. I mean, you can tell she doesn't love him.
She's done
no
the entire
passion.
present day. They're done. They've been done.
And then, you know, he just wants to be held like she's mommy, you know, and he's like kissing her and like, you know, she's like, show me some passion. I believe she would have had sex with him right there.
Oh, I think
and
he's
like, I'm going to curl up. And she's just like, there's no passion for the game or for sex in her mind.
And I think the line where he says, no, she says, if you lose, I'm going to leave you. And
she's trying to light a fire for him and for her.
And
she
Tim
is.
was like,
right?
that had the opposite effect.
Yeah.
Like he was like, that shut him down.
Yeah, but yeah, I just don't think I think from the same perspective, he realizes that he can't be who she wants him to be.
Right.
And so there is nothing left of that marriage at this point.
What a terrible way to try to motivate somebody, by
Right?
the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you lose this tennis match, we're done as a couple.
Right.
And by the way, as a family.
Yeah, we should say they have this little girl that is, we said that earlier, but she's, you know, she's not omnipresent in the movie, but we see her, and I do, so they...
they watch Spider-Verse together.
They did watch Spider-Verse together, yeah. So Zendaya ends up calling Patrick. They meet up in his...
The coaching thing, he hands her phone number, and she takes it. She doesn't throw it away. But she puts it in her pocket.
Right.
And it says midnight, the night before.
Is that what it says? Oh,
yeah.
yeah. They've got this... They've put this weird windstorm. It's not even like a thunderstorm. It's just a straight up windstorm. There's no thunder or anything. So they end up driving together, and she says, I want you to throw the game. And he was like, no. Like, why would I? And again, to Patrick's backbone, he's like, I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? Like,
Well, he needs the money.
That's exactly it.
So he
but
says,
he's also,
what about what I need?
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, okay, well, she's going to pay him.
That's what you would
I
think.
thought.
Yeah. She pays him.
She pays him. And so they end up having sex after another big fight.
Yeah. But here's the difference. He will fight. He will stand up to her, like we said. This is foreshadowed back in the dorm room. Art has no fight or passion left at all. And so even though they're arguing, she's like, this is a human being that's alive. Art is just you know what I mean? I mean, they're married.
He's a placeholder.
Yeah. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm not talking about morality. I'm just saying from a human standpoint, she's like, my marriage is dead. This guy is done. And then this guy, Patrick, is like, has a backbone. He won't do what she says. He won't necessarily just sleep with her or throw the game to sleep with her or whatever. And like, he's standing up to her. And she's like, wow. This is something.
But you know what? He's also not a good enough tennis player to have her as his coach.
That's true.
You know, when Art loses, if he does lose at the Open and he quits, that's not the end of her career. She's 30,
she can move on to coach anybody.
She could coach for 30 years after that. She could get a job at the Tennis Channel. She could do majors on ESPN. She has a huge career still ahead of her, and maybe he would do some of that not on court stuff too. But there's no reason that her career is over. But for her to take on Patrick as the person she's trying to turn into a better player, if he hasn't gotten better by the time he's 31 years old, that's a waste of time.
He even has that line where he says, imagine your whatever, if you were able to turn Patrick whatever into a Wimbledon US Open champion, you know, imagine what that could do for your career. And she was like,
I think that there's two things at play is that, like, one, he's not capable.
Yeah.
Like, one, he's not good enough.
He can't get out.
He's got a great serve,
Absolutely.
but he's not good enough day to day.
The best tournament he can be in is at the Petrie's house.
Yeah.
You know?
And also, I don't think he's capable of being coached.
Right.
That's why she picked Art over
Correct.
Patrick. Like he wouldn't listen because he will stand up to her.
Yeah.
He wouldn't that also means
Right.
he won't listen to her.
But
I don't
think-
want to move my feet that way. I'm
Right.
not going to do that.
But
Yeah.
I think after 13 years of failure and $0 in the bank, I do believe he was coming around and being like, "Okay, please coach me. I made a huge
believe
mistake."
in that moment.
Yes.
But I think
if she gets him on the court,
I think in 6 weeks
Yep.
when she says do it like this instead of that,
Yep.
no way
Sure.
he'll do it.
Right.
From
No
what we've
way
seen,
he'll
yeah.
do it.
Tomorrow,
Totally.
all day long, we're going to have you at the net practicing volleys. I hate practicing volleys. blah, blah,
I've
blah.
been playing tennis for 20 years. I don't need
I
to
agree.
practice.
Yeah,
volleys. Like,
exactly.
that's how he would
For
feel.
yes,
sure.
Right.
that's exactly it. So they hook up. She goes back to the hotel, and I do like this scene where, much like the hotel in Atlanta, she walks in the bedroom and he's gone, and she's like, "Oh man."
Thought he was going to be in like the corner and light a lamp. And
Yeah, like or,
your
you know,
typical-
like I know where you were,
Yeah.
but she opens the door and he's sleeping with her daughter.
And that's the thing
Their
at
daughter,
the
I
end
guess.
of the day, Patrick is a good lay, but Art cares about the relationship, cares about their daughter. And do you really want to be with Patrick at the end of the day? I mean, she has some decisions to make. Do I go with the passion or do I go with the good
She
person?
has no decisions to make now. She's made the decision.
What do you mean?
Well, she slept with Patrick.
Well, I don't
and
agree
now-
with that, and especially to the end of the movie. I don't think she made a decision.
Oh,
She slept with Patrick.
The
It's not
decision,
over.
the decision is going to be made for her when Patrick reveals to Art.
Oh, I don't believe so at all.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the
Let's
decision.
get to it. Let's get
okay,
to it.
so the match goes off, and it's a close match. I think Art loses the first set. Patrick loses the second set. They're going into how many sets are there? 3?
3.
Okay, so they're going into the third set, and they're neck and neck.
It's a game, right?
6 games to win the set.
Yeah.
And then they're in non-Grand Slams, they play best of 3.
Okay. So Patrick won the first set. Art won the second set.
Now
and
they're in the
it's
third. They're going into the third set, and they're tied. And all of this, and they're both spent. Like I do like this, where you can see them both exhausted on the.
the sweat.
Yeah,
I mean, what
all
was
of
their
it.
sweat budget on?
Oh,
this
yeah, I
movie?
was like, can you not drip that
Slow
directly on the
motion.
camera? That's kind of.
I like the camera work from
easy,
like they're
easy salt burn. Like,
they're on
bleh.
top of like they're like on top of plexiglass or something. They're shooting from under the
Yeah.
court. And, they're trying different stuff, shooting from the POV of the ball, from the POV of the players. Like he's really, I felt like trying to make some interesting angles.
He's attempting some stuff.
Yeah.
It does not work.
No.
I don't think
He's
it works. At all.
trying way too hard.
Yeah.
It's the Jay Leno of cinematography.
I liked it, but I get it. I mean, it's just,
So they're both looking at Zendaya, and this is if there was ever a 20, like it's eerie how similar I was in my early 20s to Patrick, because if there was ever an opportunity to take a jab at somebody I didn't like, I would do it very subtly and hope do like that ninja stuff where I was like, yeah. So as they're playing tennis, I am sitting there watching this, and I was like, oh, he's gonna do the serve.
yeah.
And as soon as
I called it from like the first set.
I did.
was like, this ends
Oh.
with
Yeah.
the special serve to be like, yeah, I
I
nailed
will
her.
say, sometimes things like that can be super heavy-handed and not
Yeah.
enjoyable. I forgot about the tell me, don't tell
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh no.
I think it was buried pretty effectively.
I thought so
No,
too.
it was good.
It was early enough
called
in the movie,
but it wasn't as winky at you to where.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
It was
really
one of
good
those things
reveal.
where it's like it didn't. That scene hadn't happened right before this
Right.
scene. Right. It was
Because of the
far enough.
non-linear fashion and the bouncing back and forth, it's easy to kind of bury that.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you can't call it until he sleeps with her. So
Right.
once he slept with her, I go, oh, well, he's going to tell him. Like,
Right.
but you couldn't call it until almost the end because
Correct.
the reveal of the midnight.
So
before.
when he places the ball in the center of the racket, Art looks at him
he just stands
and
there.
just stops, and he sends the game to a tiebreak. And that's just 1 point, right? That's all it is.
Best of 7. First one to 7.
Okay. Well, they don't do that here because as soon as he starts throwing the game, he looks at Zendaya and she kind of shoots him a look, and he was like, "I'm not. You know what? We're done." And then
that's
he
what it is,
Gives him the
right.
signal.
Yeah.
And then
He's hitting into the net,
yeah.
but then he serves it after the thing, and then Art stands there and allows him to get it back. And that's how they go to a tiebreak. He would have
Okay.
lost
Okay.
if not for Art standing there. Because he goes, he can serve.
I
and he's
see, I
like,
see.
you need to take your position. And he does and just doesn't do anything. Then we go into a tiebreak.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's game like
And now it's a back and forth
Right.
battle. But this is the thing. Art was, again, dead. He was done. He had given up on his career, given up on his relationship. He had no passion. When this happened, he's like, game on.
Right.
This brings his spark back. This brings back his passion.
And it's a very bad. It's a fight scene for me. Where
Yeah,
it's just
it
like,
is.
stop. This is terrible. Like, stop with the quick cuts. They get to a very close volley where they're like both up on the net.
They keep inching closer to the net with their volleys. Yeah.
And Patrick, I think, does kind of he doesn't shank a ball, but he does put one in a spot where Art can just absolutely hammer it. And I don't think he did that on purpose. I think he did that on accident because they were, you're involved in this game, and now they're both
Somebody's going to make a mistake eventually.
That's exactly it. And Art jumps in the air, and you're just like, well.
I thought and he does go over the net, basically.
You're either going to smash that ball, and it's going to be like this, I told you so, or you're going to hit Patrick in the head with your racket. I don't know which is which. So the scene kind of pulls back. He falls over the net, but Patrick catches him.
Yeah.
And then they hug, and that's how the movie.
And
then
Tashi lets out her yell.
Right. So what I'm saying.
Tennis is sex for
correct.
Tashi. And her husband got his passion back.
Incidentally, when you touch or fall over the net, you lose the point.
That's what I was saying, right? So he loses.
But maybe the ball hit the court first.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, if you go afterwards?
Yep.
Oh, so then that leaves it more ambiguous then.
So
yeah,
I think
sure.
that he absolutely. Well, it doesn't. I mean, if the rule is,
doesn't mean he loses the game.
Sure, it does.
But if it's a tie-breaking point and he loses the point,
he loses
right?
that point.
Yeah.
It's a
I
point.
see what you're saying. You're right. You're right.
So it is more ambiguous, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter. They're friends. He caught his friend, even though he was mad at him. She's happy her husband has passion because now he probably will hopefully go on to win the U.S. Open and play again because he's passionate and like the relationships are repaired.
I don't think that's true at all.
I think it's an opinion.
I think the relationship between Patrick and Art is not repaired because Patrick did sleep with his wife, and Art knows that. So like maybe in that moment. But that relationship is done. I think Art also knows that Tashi slept with Patrick. This one person that has been like this thorn in his side, and not, I guess, thorn in the side, but this adversarial person in his life. She sleeps with him before this quote-unquote big match. Tashi is now out of control. She does not have the control of what happens with her relationship. Art is in control. He can either say, okay, we're going to work, we're going to make it through this, or we're done.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is like she does not have control of the situation. She doesn't, because it's not her decision to make at this point.
Her decision was either you win or we're done, and he wasn't going to win, and he had no drive, and now he has passion. There's hope at least, but either way, she just wanted to watch a damn good game of tennis.
That's fair.
And she did.
Yes, she manipulated
threw
everybody.
away her marriage to do it.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Is like she manipulated her way
well, not
into.
necessarily. Maybe. I mean, I don't know that it's they can work through
here's
it.
the
It's
thing.
not that it's
with the character we've
over.
seen of Art throughout this entire movie, it may not be over.
Yeah.
Right. Like he is kind of this spineless, wormy guy.
I just think that he realizes too.
Wormy.
He was
The wormy guy.
dead too. He had no passion. He got his passion back. Maybe that will make him work for it, work for the relationship.
The magic of New Rochelle.
Yeah, there you go.
Rochelle.
But I just it's open to interpretation. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But nothing is certain. There is no certainty
No.
to it.
Unless you're in movies like this, unless you see it.
Yeah.
Right.
But I feel like the friends had this little moment together. He caught his friend. He got his passion back. She saw good tennis. I feel like they all won.
Everybody wins.
They won, but now it's like, what's next? And that's the interpretation.
he loses the next point.
Here's where I would have done yet one more flash forward.
Yeah.
20 years later, they're all on a vacation somewhere, but they don't know that they're vacationing in the same place until they walk out onto the pickleball court.
That's funny.
I think in 20 years they're just a flat-out throuple.
Maybe.
At the end of the day, that's also an option. They realize that they all have this. They work well together in the fact that one pushes the other to do, certain things like the friendship, the doubles. They won as a doubles team. They won.
Yeah.
They had this great friendship. They were very close. Obviously, things got in the way, but Tashi brought out the best in Art for his playing skills. Patrick gave her the passion. You know what I mean? So really, that is probably the best thing for these three is to be a throuple. It really is from what we've seen.
Maybe.
I think, and I don't think the movie needed this. I think they were smart to not do it, but I also feel like this match would have drawn out media
without question.
Like this,
with his level,
very famous tennis
Yes.
player is slumming it and ends up in a final match against his former doubles partner. I just don't see how that doesn't bring out at least the tennis media.
I wonder
swarming over that story
because they don't really give you a timeline of where they are, but they do.
No, they say 2019.
The present day is 2019.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
movie.
the opening scene of the movie is
August
like August
2019.
whatever,
Oh, okay.
2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
I must have missed
Because
that.
at first I thought it was going to have something to do with COVID.
Well, I thought that they had said something about Clinton and the.
They did. It's people talking about Hillary Clinton crap.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was thinking. Okay. So when you were
Before
talking
the election,
I was
it's-
thinking like if we're in 1996. Granted, nobody looks like they're in 1996.
Yeah,
at
well,
all.
I think the farthest it goes back in time is like 2006.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay.
It's Nelly based on.
Oh,
Hot
yeah,
Year.
that's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
01, isn't it? I think that's 01. That song's from
I
like
don't know.
2001.
But
I
that's-
think I think it was supposed to be like the deliberately like slightly outdated top 40 music they would play
Sure.
at those things.
Yeah.
They wouldn't
Okay,
play a
that
current
tracks.
hit song.
That's
They'd
true,
play
yeah.
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 But
I thought they did a really good job aging them all through the time jump.
I did too.
At first, I'm like, how are they going to do this? Because we talk about Tom Holland with a mustache, and it's ridiculous. But I'll tell you what, I
believed him at 34 or whatever they're supposed to believe, and I believed him at 17.
I did. I agree. They're all
I think
youthful
Zendaya
and-
also she has longer hair.
They gave
and
her
they gave her
the
bob the
hair,
mom.
yeah.
It's not mom hair, but it's
But
not mom
I
hair.
get what you're saying.
Okay.
though.
Basically, yeah. So
No, I think I liked the story.
I liked the story a lot. I liked the puzzle box. I hated the music.
Wasn't a big fan of the
Oh,
music.
during
hated
those
the audio
tennis
mix.
scenes, though,
That's when the music
it was
worked.
fine
that
then.
Reznor and Ross score to amp
Yeah.
up the intensity of
But
those tennis
during
matches.
the conversations,
No, I didn't realize it was them until the end of the movie.
Oh, really?
Well, because
just hearing it, you
that
couldn't-
sounds
I mean-
like nothing they've done.
Oh, it sounds just like Social Network.
No.
which we're
I disagree.
supposedly getting a sequel to.
What is?
Social Network.
Why?
Aaron Sorkin wants to write about Facebook in the 2016 elections.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, is Fincher going to direct it?
I don't know.
I thought
I feel like
this-
you have
There's
to.
no script yet.
I feel like
Yeah.
you have. But I
don't know how you didn't hear the Reznor Ross Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Social Network.
those sound different to me. Those sound very different.
Well, I'm not saying
than-
they copied. I just mean like
No.
when you
I just
hear
mean,
yeah.
when it gets to the end, like when I finally, when they do
Actually play a song and you hear
Yeah,
vocals
and I was like,
you're like, oh yeah.
Sounds
is
just like
this-
9 Inch Nails.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, is this?
Yeah.
And then it was.
It's
But
intense.
Yeah, but I liked it during the tennis scenes. I did not like it during the
Agreed.
dialogue.
I liked it during everything but the sauna. Even though it ramped up the intensity, it felt out of place in the sauna. That level of intense electronica music and
I
them
need to go
arguing, I
back-
was just like, well, this feels a little weird.
That's how I felt every
During
time
all the-
they're
Yeah.
talking.
When it was
and
the
they're
tennis
doing
stuff, I thought it was fine.
Yeah,
But
it was fine for
overall-
the action scenes.
But
if you
yeah, I enjoyed it overall. I did not know what to expect going into this.
The only thing I liked about it was Zendaya, who I think will continue to rise and do a lot more
Yeah.
interesting, good stuff and get cast in, frankly, whatever role she wants.
For sure.
However,
Yeah.
this is my current leader for worst movie of the year.
I was going to say, you really
Okay.
hated
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts, BUTTS21. You can also follow me on Letterboxd at the same.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at KevinRBrackett.
This is Paul. You can find me on harrisonline.com.
And this is Tom. You can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. Find the show online at facebook.com/Real Spoilers. And of course, don't forget our Patreon. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, Alex moves out and Eddie gets a single dorm.
Get better.